Your elevator pitch is the first impression you make on potential investors. Whether it's written or delivered in person, this is the first thing they hear from you and the first information they get about your company. Today, I want to share some tips and techniques for crafting a high-impact elevator pitch, whether written or oral, that will get you that next follow-up meeting. Welcome to Feel the Boot, the science of startups. I'm your host, Lance Cottrell, and I'm here to help you navigate that nearly vertical learning curve you're going to encounter as you build your business. I know what it's like. I have been there myself, and I have helped countless other founders along their journeys. This episode is part of my series on pitching. It's probably one of the biggest series we have because there are so many people who are focused and fighting with this particular issue. You can go find the entire playlist up there, and I'll also put a link down in the description. As you think about building your elevator pitch, remember what it's there for. This is not going to close the deal. You're not going to give someone an elevator pitch and have them write you a check on the spot. The point here is to entice someone, to give them enough information to interest them, to want to learn more, to give you the time to do your full pitch, which of course also isn't where they're going to write the check, but it takes you on to then the follow-up meetings and due diligence and so forth. It's all about setting that hook so you get more time with them. Because inherently with an elevator pitch, the idea is you only have a few minutes. You're literally in an elevator, or you're meeting someone briefly at a busy conference. They can't give you 5 minutes to talk. They can only give you a few seconds before they're interrupted again. Or if you're sending an email or a message in LinkedIn, it's got to be super short. We all have very short attention spans, and we're getting continuously overwhelmed with messages. So it needs to be short, sweet, and to the point, and get me to agree to say, oh yeah, please go ahead, send me your deck. Let's set up a time to talk. Right? That's the outcome you want. Within the context of this episode, I'm going to be talking specifically about elevator pitches for your company to get investment, but in fact, elevator pitches apply in all kinds of other ways. For example, you might use an elevator pitch when you're trying to hire someone. You meet someone at a conference or in a meetup who has a really useful skill set to you. You need to be able to pitch them quickly on why they should talk to you about taking a job at your company. Or you may be selling your product or running into a potential customer. You need to be able to quickly convince them that they should be buying your product, why it's so cool. Each one of these obviously is going to be a different elevator pitch, but most of the principles apply across the board. A lot of founders try to get a little too formal or clever with their elevator pitches. You know, they've come up with some really nice turns of phrase and specific things that they want to say, and we're the Uber of avocados, whatever the heck that might mean. And I find this often doesn't work very well. It sounds too rehearsed and a little bit artificial. Often when I'm advising people, they want to start by telling me their elevator pitch. And so they do the pitch, and then they'll start talking about what their company is and what it does. And that next thing they say, the next 30 seconds to a minute that comes out of their mouth, is actually far better than the elevator pitch that they've been practicing for the last 3 weeks. It sounds so much more natural. They're suddenly talking in normal English about their customers and why they need what they're doing and the value they're providing and the reason why their customers are so frustrated with the options they have now, which is exactly what you want to be talking about with your elevator pitch. One of the things that happens when you're rehearsing this all the time is people will reintroduce themselves. Hi, I'm Lance. I'm CEO of X. When you already told the person your name, you've already introduced yourself when you said hello. Why are you suddenly going into script mode and introducing yourself again? It just sounds so practiced, whereas you want to sound like someone who's just having a conversation about this amazing thing they're doing with someone they just met. Because an elevator pitch is an invitation to further conversations, whether immediately or sometime in the future, it's often useful to start with an opening question, something that is going to get the juices flowing and can also be a determinant, where if the answer is yes, there's clearly an opportunity to move on, and if the answer is no, well, you might as well not waste your time and move on to the next person. So you might say, do you think that EV charging is a fully solved problem? Now, in fact, here I've reversed the yes and no, but if they think it's a totally solved problem, there's no real point in talking to them anymore. If they don't, then it's time to go on. Or you might say, did you know that more than half of the water used in domestic irrigation just goes down into the gutter and does no good for the grass, and another third overwaters the grass? Wouldn't it be great if there were a solution to that? If they say yes, they're clearly thinking about environmentalism, they're thinking about water use, they may be someone who'd be interested in the pitch you've got. And there's some famous examples of opening with a leading question in employment. And I'm going to put this one up on the screen because it's from Steve Jobs and I've got to get it exactly right. He said, when he was offering when Jobs was trying to hire Scully, who was CEO of Pepsi, he said, quote, "Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want the chance to change the world?" Who's not going to be interested in that offer? Remember, there isn't a lot of time for Q&A in an elevator pitch. So what you're saying needs to be instantly comprehensible. So you shouldn't be using jargon, no acronyms that someone might know, no technical phrases that are related to your subject unless you know this person is an absolute expert in that area. Be careful about overly fancy analogies, right? You don't want to open by saying something like, "We democratize access to breakfast foods," when really what you need to say is, "We make automated waffle makers for lazy people." Something that's just very instantly clear what the heck you're talking about. The whole brief conversation really is about triggering interest and emotion in your audience. It's about what they're thinking. Your job is not to make yourself look amazing or clever or anything like that. All you need to do is put that emotional note in your audience's mind that this is an interesting opportunity that they want to learn more about. So keep in mind the focus on them and what's going to interest that person rather than just the data you want to put across. Although in many cases, data can be one of those things. If you've got some amazing statistic, throw it out there. That can be a very strong hook. If you have a strong why in your business, it's great to include that in your elevator pitch. A strong sense of purpose can resonate with many audiences and make them feel more attuned and attracted to what you're doing. But don't spend too much time lingering on it. That's when you start getting into the pit of admiring the problem rather than talking about what it is that you do and the benefits that your solution, your creation will bring to your customers. So just for fun, let's walk through an example of what my elevator pitch probably should have sounded like back when I was doing my startup when I was a wee lad and had no idea what I was doing. So we're going to start off by a quick introduction. Hi, I'm Lance, CEO of Anonymizer. I may have already made that introduction, in which case I'm not going to say that. Next, I want to say something about what we do. This is my chance to introduce the problem and the solution. So I might say something like, we build platforms allowing agents of the national security and intelligence community to conduct online undercover operations on our platform. Because right now, most of these agencies are using homegrown solutions that are frankly radically inadequate to the job and put our national security at risk. Next, who am I doing this for? Who's my customer? Who are my users? In many cases, your customers and your users are not the same person, which was the case for me. So I would say something like, we're selling to people in charge of operational groups within the US intelligence and national security communities, and our users are the people with hands on the keyboard conducting those operations directly engaging with our enemies. Then I would say something about how we're doing it. This is not the time to dive into deep technical dives, but just at a very high level. We build a platform that allows people to use our environment when they're engaging on the public internet, making them appear to be someone else, somewhere else, in a way that will stand up to foreign nation state scrutiny. Then it might be a chance to talk about what are your differentiations? Why do customers pick you over some other option that's out there, right? What's the differentiator that you bring to bear? So we might say, we are the only mature and battle-tested solution to the misattribution problem. We have protected dozens of missions and saved hundreds of lives in real operational scenarios. If you have traction, talk about traction. It's always good to show that people want the thing you're selling. It speaks much more than you're telling them it's good. If your customers are paying for it, it shows that it's good. So I'd say we already have dozens of large government contracts worth millions of dollars per year. Right? Keep it short, keep it simple. Remember, this is an elevator pitch. Finally, you should talk about what it is that you need. If the person still looks interesting, you want to make an ask. Let them know what this next meeting is going to be about. So I might say, at this point, we're looking for growth capital to allow us to expand the capabilities of our solution, continue to put distance between us and the nascent competitors that are coming on, and completely take domination over this space. Finally, and only if this is not in person, you could talk about how to follow up. Right? Please ask for my deck, let me know if you want to have an email, schedule a Zoom call. In person, the most important thing to make sure is that you have made an effective communications path between you. So you've got their email address, they have yours, phone numbers, websites, LinkedIn's, whatever it is that will allow you to take that follow-up and ask them if they'd be willing to follow up. Elevator pitches take a lot of practice, both to get down what you want to say, make it sound natural, get past that weird uncanny valley where everything feels scripted and memorized, and be able to deliver all of this information in a way that is rapid, but also comprehensible. One of the things you should be doing is practicing this in front of people who don't already know your business. So anyone who you can convince to stand still for a minute, let you deliver the elevator pitch, and then ask them to describe your business back to you, just to see, did they get it? This is hugely illuminating. You'll quickly discover that they picked up all sorts of wrong ideas about the business model that you've got. That tells you what you need to fix for the next time you run through it, until you finally have something that people understand every time and sounds like a natural conversation coming out of your mouth. Thanks for watching this episode. I hope you found it useful and interesting. And if so, please do the usual: like, subscribe, ring that bell, head over to Feel the Boot and sign up for Boot Prints. That's our newsletter. It gives you access to my free office hours, 15-minute time slots where you can talk to me about any issue your business may be facing. However, they do tend to book up in advance and you might need more time. We also have a paid option. It's available at feeltheboot.com/advising. And for companies that are particularly interesting and where it seems like there's a good relationship, I take on a small number of businesses as a formal advisor on their advisory board, but we can talk about that sometime down the road. And until next time, ciao.